If there's one thing that makes a drawing feel real, it's values. They are what give your drawing depth, form, and realism. And trust me, this is the area that challenges me the most. Uneven patches, messy shading, just generally things looking plain and flat. For the longest time, I stayed away from value studies because they never made sense to me. So I want to try values one more time, and I want to take you with me through what I have been practicing, where I have been messing up, and what finally started making sense. The simplest way I understand values is values are how light or dark something is. It's that simple. Value is not shading. That is how I used to see it before. But value is a principle while shading is a way of representing those values. So one is a principle while the other one is merely a method. Even perfect shading on wrong values looks flat and confusing. And the crazy thing is, values decide everything. They decide where the form turns. They decide whether a drawing has life or whether it looks flat. But there's actually one thing even more important than values, which comes under the drawing process, not the rendering one, and that is proportions. So if your drawing has solid proportions, it already stands on its own. You could stop right there. But if you want to give it some volume, if you want it to have some dimension or have some style, whether in black and white or in color, that's when values become essential. Values are what turn flat shapes into real forms. Values will always matter more than colors. You will hear many artists say that. And it's true because if we want our colors to look their best, we need a solid foundation of values underneath. Colors only work when the values underneath are strong. That's exactly what I'm trying to learn right now. Values are created when light hits a form. Different planes of the object, of the form, receive different amounts of light, and that's what creates the lighter and darker tones we see. Here I am using a sphere as the form, with sunlight coming from the top right. When light hits a form, it naturally divides it into two major zones, the light family and the shadow family. Light always creates the same pattern. So the light family, the area that receives the direct light, has center light, which is the brightest area on the form. Highlight, the sharp, bright, specular spot we see. It only happens in metallic or glossy surface. Half tones are the areas between full light and shadow. Then we have the shadow family, the areas where light cannot reach directly. So here we have the terminator. It's the line that divides light from shadow. This is where the form turns away from the light. Then we have the form shadow, which is the main shadow sitting on the form after the terminator. And then we also have reflected light, which is a light that bounces back into the shadow from nearby surfaces. It's called light, but it still belongs in the shadow family because it's always darker than the halftones. Lastly, we also have a cast shadow, that is the shadow of the object that gets formed on other surfaces. So like for example, we have the ground where the cast shadows get formed, and it's darkest at the point where the form meets it. That point is called occlusion shadow. And this pattern repeats on literally everything. A sphere, a face, a box, anything. One thing to really understand is the tool does not matter at all. The principle does. It does not matter what your tools are. It could be graphite, watercolor, digital, or ballpoint pen. If the values are right, anything works just fine. So it does not matter if the methods are tonal shading, which is where you blend things smoothly like you would in hyperrealism, and you have cross hatching, which is what I mostly use and something that I'm using right now in these two drawings as well, or even scribbling or stippling or any other method. This actually reduced so much pressure because now I don't feel like I need the perfect or more tools to improve. I just need to understand value control. In real life, forms are not made out of outlines like the way we draw them. They're made of planes that turn in space. So when we observe how light reacts on each plane, we begin to understand the form better. Values tell us what the form is, where it turns, how the light is falling, what the material might be, and even whether something nearby is reflecting extra light onto it. I always thought my shading looked weird because I was not blending properly, which has some truth to it, but I never paid attention to value as a principle. My values were always placed in the wrong areas. Values are always relative. In real life, the lightest lights and the darkest darks are far more intense than anything we can ever put on paper. Our eyes can only perceive a certain range of brightness, and our drawing tools, graphite, charcoal, ink, all of these things have their own limits. So, what really matters is not matching nature exactly, but making the values in your drawing work relative to each other. So, these are my results of attempting values before I tried to understand value as a principle and tried a popular value exercise, which is value scales. This is the first time in my life I have actually done value scales properly. I have done them in such a rush before. Any time I tried to, it seems such a tiring and boring exercise. I have never taken it seriously before, and the result has been my values look so muddy and patchy. Observation is very important here as well, as I need to be careful about getting just the right value in a particular box, not darker or lighter, just where it should be. Comparison here is key, as these tones should be relative to each other and should be carefully drawn or shaded in the boxes. So we can try doing the same in our drawings later on. Just observe where the dark or the light part is and simply try placing it down. Of course, make changes and corrections wherever necessary. I will definitely work on understanding how exactly light reacts with forms next and understand where these different tones are coming from in a subject as light falls on them. Now, while practicing this, I realized something very embarrassing. I did not even know what a flat value even meant. A flat value is just one clean, consistent tone. No streaks, no bumps, no random dark spots. And wow, it's hard. I'm putting the values down with a graphite pencil and then correcting any uneven or darker tones that got made from the edges of the pencil strokes using a kneaded eraser. This is to achieve a flat value I can work on later. It is very important because that lets us clearly tell what is light and what is dark if we layer it on top of a flat value. It makes more sense, it's more readable, other than it all being all over the place and causing confusion, looking muddy. The lightest value is the most difficult because every tiny mistake is visible, but these flat values taught me more about shading than any tutorial. Because if I cannot make one simple tone clean, how will I control a whole cheek or an arm or a background? So after having done these value scales, I finally started understanding pressure control a bit better. So I tried drawing a few simple subjects, the ones I'm showing right now. I did them casually so I did not record the process, and these references I took were from Pinterest. So this is where I'm currently at. As you can see, my values have definitely improved a bit. They are still uneven, still patchy, still messy, but I'm starting to understand it better now and have felt the difference when I practice. My next plan is to finish these incomplete value scales and then to make another one, full value scale with graphite, and then maybe try a different medium like pen and different methods like cross hatching or along with tonal shading. And very important for me, apply values in one proper drawing with graphite tonal shading. Then repeat the same drawing using cross hatching just to see how well have I understood the concept despite of the methods or the tools used. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you're also working on values, I hope this helps you feel less alone in the struggle. Take your time, be patient, and I'll see you in my next study.